Welcome into the Whole Hog Football Podcast, and big news out of the University of Arkansas. Chad Morris has been let go as the University of Arkansas head coach. We got Scottie Bordelon and Matt Jones joining me, Seth Campbell, to break this down. We'll start with you, Scottie. Your initial reaction on Morris being fired?
Yeah, I wasn't super surprised. After a lot of people thought that, he was going to be let go maybe after the game yesterday, considering that was Arkansas's fourth loss to a group of five team in less than 2 years. And you just couldn't really, at the moment, see this thing moving forward with the same leadership. And I think Hunter Yurachek took some time, last night and this morning to make that call, and he ultimately felt like it was in the program's best interest to change leadership. Barry Lunny will be the interim for the final two games of the year. But I wasn't surprised. I thought he was kind of a dead man walking yesterday after Western Kentucky got off to such a good start. Offensively, Arkansas didn't have the firepower to keep up in a game like that, and defensively there was too many breakdowns, and it just kind of it was. I don't know. I wasn't at all surprised by this, and I'm just kind of surprised it took until Sunday, to be honest.
What do you think, Matt?
Well, I'm not surprised it took till today. I think that's Hunter Yurachek's his personality is that he's not going to make a fire on the night of a game. I think he's just going to give himself some time, give the coach, maybe the night just to, prepare himself. And so it didn't really surprise me that the announcement was held off until today, and the firing didn't surprise me either. I fully expected going into the game that if they lost to Western Kentucky, that they were going to have a new head football coach or going to begin the process for one. And then you lose to Western Kentucky the way they lose, and it made it, I think everybody knew at halftime yesterday that this was going to be the result, because that team had Chad Morris had clearly lost that team. That team is not 30 points worse than Mississippi State. It's not 26 points worse than Western Kentucky. I would argue it's probably not 41 points worse than Alabama. But they're just, you get to a certain point. We saw it last year with the Missouri and Mississippi State games, and we saw it again here within the last few weeks. You lose your football team, and these kinds of losses start to, add up, and it's an accumulation of things, and it's the losses, it's the players decommitting, it's the, some of your best players like a C.J. O'Grady quitting the team. You get to a certain point and you can't withstand all of that. And then you throw in the record and everything else. And there was no surprise. And this was something Arkansas had to do. I mean, you look at the stadium at their home games this year. They played Auburn, the number 11 team in the country at that time, maybe even a top 10 team. There's 40,000 people in the stadium. The fan base spoke with its pocketbooks this year, and they said, we don't like the product that's on the field. And you do that loud enough, and the administration has to listen to you. And, I think just as much as the wins and the losses or the lack of wins, the reaction from the fan base at their home games this season, I think, spoke really loudly in the decision to make this change right now.
So I posed the question to you guys, what was the defining moment of Morris's tenure?
Yeah, I would say probably the losses in close games is what stands out to me, because you think back to last season, they had the LSU game really wasn't close. Arkansas got within 7 toward the end of the game, but there was never a point in that game where you felt like Arkansas was going to win. But the Ole Miss game was close last year. The Texas A&M game was close last year. The Colorado State game last year. The San Jose State game this year. The Kentucky game this year. The Texas A&M game. You win any of those, especially conference games, and all of a sudden it's a different story right now. But it was just that inability to close out close games. They were 1-7 under Morris in one possession games. And the one win, by the way, was Portland State, because Portland State scored on kind of a fluky play at the end to pull within one possession. It didn't feel like a one possession game. They weren't able to win the close games. And, I think, and it's not that they weren't able to win the close games. In a lot of the games where you felt like it should be close, there were blowouts. The Western Kentucky game on Saturday, a perfect point. It's just that feeling that they weren't getting better. I think, you look at Tennessee right now, Jeremy Pruitt, they had a horrible start to this season. We'll look at them. They're 5-5, and they're probably going to go to a bowl game this season. A&M under Jimbo Fisher, they're better than they were when he came in 2 years ago. You could, you can make, obviously you make the argument that Dan Mullen has got Florida in a better position than they were in when he came in 2 years ago. And you just didn't see that with Arkansas. And I think, the key early in a coaching tenure is how you play in close games. And Arkansas was not winning those close games. And had they been able to win some of them, I think we'd be having a different discussion today. But that's that's the way it fell.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with some of what Matt's saying, like with the close games. And I'll even go back to like I think the first defining moment of Morris's tenure was at Colorado State. And I know Matt was at that game. Arkansas
4th and 1.
Like 4th and 1 to start the fourth quarter at Colorado State. And Arkansas finished that game, I think, with the second most rushing yards that Morris has ever had in a game in his head coaching career. And he doesn't go for it on 4th and 1 with essentially a chance to put the game away.
Mm-hmm.
So Arkansas elects to not go for it, and that game just kind of turns on its head with a couple of other key plays in there too. But I think that kind of set the tone early in his tenure that they weren't as left lane and hammer down as they said they would be. With a chance to grab another early win in year one. And the Ole Miss game last year, like if Ty Story and Rakeem Boyd don't get hurt in that game, maybe Arkansas does pull that out, and maybe we're in such a different place than we are now. And I know it's not like a singular defining moment, but Arkansas is just like they had zero stability at quarterback the entire time. In any of the 22 games really. Like Ty Story, I think, started the most games. He started 9. Nick Starkel may have started 4 or 5, and Ben Hicks got 4. Ben Hicks didn't complete more than 50% of his passes in any of his starts. The only 2 times he did that was when he came off the bench in relief of Nick Starkel, who was either playing really bad or injured. Nick Starkel threw 10 picks. So the quarterback instability, I think, is a giant black mark on Morris and that entire offensive staff, really.
Yeah, there's multiple situations that can stick out, and y'all brought up a lot of them. And all right, guys, it's kind of undoing of Morris. Let's look ahead now. I know it is just the first day of a coaching search, and really hasn't even been 24 hours. But a lot of Arkansas fans are looking to the future now. Maybe a short list, 3 names maybe from both of you guys. We'll start with you, Scottie, of people that Arkansas fans can look out for to be the next head coach.
Oh my gosh. I don't know that I've got a great answer right now. I know some of the names that I've seen kind of thrown around are Mike Norvell at Memphis. I think he was a name that a lot of people really liked the last time around. I think Dave Aranda is another name. I don't know that he would jump ship and come to Arkansas, but those are, I think right now, 2 names that I've seen kind of float around. I'm not sure at this point just like how realistic those 2 names are. And I know there's kind of some questions surrounding Norvell and, some things that he's into, he gets into away from the football field. But, I saw Jason Brown is very interested. He said he's willing to take the minimum and prove himself.
Jason Brown, Independence Community College head coach Jason Brown.
Yeah, I don't think Arkansas is going to go that way, but I might have to dive into some more names before I, go out and throwing out a top 3. But those are, I think Norvell is an interesting case, and he's brought Memphis football all the way back, so that'd be definitely pretty interesting.
Well, I think Mike Norvell is going to be the person who a lot of fans are clamoring for because of his ties to the state. He played at UCA. His wife is from Fort Smith. I believe they have a lake house on Beaver Lake in the north part of the state. So there are a lot of ties, for him. And then obviously, he's coaching in Memphis. They're recruiting Arkansas high schools. There's a relationship already there, not only in Arkansas, but also in Memphis. I believe he's from Dallas. And so, there's those natural ties. He coached in Tulsa with the cities that are, or the areas that are kind of, considered to be the areas that you have to recruit if you're an Arkansas head coach. I think the thing with Norvell that would probably give me a little bit of pause, and there's going to be pluses and minuses to every coach. That's just how it is. But he didn't rebuild Memphis. That when he took over at Memphis, Justin Fuente had already done kind of the heavy lifting, so to speak, after he took over what was a really bad program. And so, what Norvell did was he stepped into it was a good situation, and he's made it better, in the 4 or 5 years since Justin Fuente went to Virginia Tech. I still think there are going to be those people who were influential 2 years ago who are going to want to make another run at Gus Malzahn. Auburn's got 2 losses right now. They still got to play Georgia. They still have to play Alabama. And you know how fickle the Auburn fan base is. An 8-4 season at Auburn might be like a 4-8 season at a lot of other places. And especially when it's happening with Alabama having the type of success it's having, Georgia having the type of success that it's having, those are Auburn's 2 big rivals. And you throw in LSU success in there too. And, I think a lot of people would be getting restless. Is it a job that Malzahn wants? I don't know. Is it something that Arkansas wants with him? I don't know, but he is an experienced coach. I know that there are a lot of people within the state, within the fan base who probably don't care for him, but he's won 2 division championships. He's won an SEC championship. And, he's the type of coach that gives your program, a reputability that maybe it didn't have with a Chad Morris or even a Brett Bielema. So I think that there's going to be, some interest from some people, within influential circles, I guess I should say, in Gus Malzahn. I don't know how realistic that is, but I do think that, there are going to be some people who want to see him as a candidate. Outside of that, I really don't know. I mean, those are really the two coaches who I think, kind of move the needle for a lot of people right now. I think that there are a lot of people who would, maybe correctly say that Mike Norvell is just a better version of Chad Morris, an offensive coach who's never been able to field a very good defense. That was the knock on Morris coming out of when he was at SMU. They never had a defense that was better than, I think, 108th nationally in total defense, and they were never any better at Arkansas. And so, maybe you go out and you try to hire, like Scottie said, a Dave Aranda, a Brent Venables, even though Brent Venables has never really shown that he has any interest in leaving Clemson, a defensive-minded type head coach, maybe a Kevin Steele at Auburn, I don't know, but a defensive-minded head coach who's going to maybe give the team a little bit of a different identity, a defensive-first identity. Can you have a defensive-first identity in college football right now? I don't know if that's possible. And then you start thinking about what I would call the Murfreesboro coaches, the diamonds in the rough. Maybe a guy like Eli Drinkwitz, who's at Appalachian State right now. They're 8-1. They've beaten North Carolina and South Carolina, the first Sun Belt school that's ever gone on the road and defeated 2 Power 5 teams. Drinkwitz is from Alma. He coached in Springdale. He's coached in Alma. He coached at Arkansas State. He went to Arkansas Tech. A lot of ties, within our state from him. Maybe there are some other coaches like that who are out there who are having good years at the lower levels. Of course, I think there'll be a little bit of a resistance to go into the lower levels right now and look for a head coach because of what they just had with Chad Morris. So, it's really hard to say. Hunter Yurachek, when he hired Eric Musselman earlier this year, I think Musselman kind of came out of left field for some people. So, it's really hard to say. This is only the second time that we have seen Hunter Yurachek in a coaching search, or at least a high-profile coaching search, since he's been at Arkansas. He's only hired one other football coach ever, and that was Major Applewhite. at Houston, and everything that I've heard about that situation, kind of hints that there was a lot of booster influence to promote somebody from within, somebody who might be able to, or maybe somebody like that was not like Tom Herman, who was just going to use Houston as a stepping stone type job. I think that I read that during that coaching search, I think Lane Kiffin had emerged as a high candidate in the Houston search, and they didn't want a Lane Kiffin to come in and use Houston for 2 years and try to leverage it into a bigger job. So it's just hard to say because every coaching search is different. Every administrator who leads a coaching search is different. I think the only thing that you're going to find in this coaching search is that Yurachek is going to handle it professionally, and he's going to handle it privately. And it'll probably, unfortunately, that'll lead to a lot of speculation, might lead to some false reporting, a lot of rumors. But that's just the nature of high-profile coaching searches these days. But hey, I think Eric Musselman was a great hire in basketball, and I think he has upgraded their basketball program. And the bar is low for the new football coach. And if Yurachek can find a football coach that is comparable to what he found with Eric Musselman, then I would say the football program would be on much more solid footing moving forward.
Matt, before I let you go here, I want to ask you, like you said, Yurachek has run a coaching search before at the University of Arkansas with Eric Musselman, and as you said, everything was very close to the chest. He played his cards close, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. So that is going to lead to some speculation. One of those names that people are going to speculate about is a PJ Fleck at Minnesota. I know that he just signed the big contract extension, but does Arkansas, have the money, and isn't that the better job than Minnesota and where Fleck has Minnesota right now?
I think Arkansas's got the money to hire whoever they want to hire. They were going to pay Gus Malzahn a lot of money 2 years ago if they could have had him. So I think Arkansas is a job that's going to be able to command a high salary for the right coach. They were paying Brett Bielema, I think, $4.2 or $4.3 million in the final season of his contract. That was very competitive pay for a head coach. And so I think the money's there. PJ Fleck, I don't know. He seems to me like a coach that wants to stay in the northern part of the country. You look at his background. He played at Northern Illinois. He's coached in Michigan. Of course, he's coaching in Minnesota right now. And you mentioned the new contract that he has at Minnesota. It would be hard. It would be hard to imagine a coach stepping out of that. You think about a Matt Campbell, at Iowa State. I think he's going to be a hot name in coaching circles, or at least in coaching searches over the next year, maybe 2 years. Is that maybe someone that they hire? So I think they've got the money to make it lucrative for the coach who wants to step in to the SEC. But you also have to find the right coach in terms of someone like a Chad Morris who's willing to take on the type of the type of rebuild that they're going to have at Arkansas. I don't know if it's going to be as difficult for the next coach as it was for Chad Morris. I think the wins don't necessarily reflect this, but I think a lot of people would agree that in terms of recruiting, they've probably upgraded their roster the last couple of years, and you start to see that with some of the freshmen who have played really well, the players like, say, a Treylon Burks or, even Mateo Soli has played, okay defensively. He's a freshman defensive end. He's taken his lumps. But you see those younger players, Ricky Stromberg, Bo Limmer, who have gotten into games, and they've shown some flashes this season. And so the new coach is going to inherit that, but you still have to have someone who's going to be willing to step into, let's face it, it's the worst situation in the SEC right now. Arkansas has been sitting in last place in the SEC for 3 years now, and it takes a coach with a different kind of mentality to want to step into that. So I think the money's there, but there are a lot of factors. I think that maybe more so than financially. There's schematically, psychologically. I think there's a lot of things that go into this hire that maybe everybody who's not in Hunter Yurachek's chair. I think that there may be factors that people don't he's going to be thinking about as he's looking for the next coach.
All right, Matt. All right, Scottie. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Whole Hog Football Podcast. That was just a short roundup, a reaction, so to speak, on the Chad Morris situation at the University of Arkansas and who's going to be the next head coach. But those guys and everybody at the staffs of the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Hogs Illustrated, and at Whole Hog Sports are going to keep you updated. They're going to give you all the information that you want. So make sure to subscribe to wholehogsports.com right now, and you can get all of that great information and really, guys that are plugged in and can get you what you want to know about the University of Arkansas football program. All right, well, until next time, as I said, for Scottie Bordelon and Matt Jones, I'm Seth Campbell. We'll see you later.